Hey everyone, this is Raution Jaiswal, CEO and co-founder of InsuredMine, and you are listening to a 30-minute with Insurance CEO podcast, the show that is designed to inspire growth and impact so you can create the best version of your agency by learning from the leading insurance agency CEO. Today we are talking about how to start, grow and build an agencies and then transition from the captive side to the independent side. And today I have with me the CEO of Oakwin Insurance. Welcome, Brent. Let's hear from you. How have you been doing?
We've been doing great. Like you said, we've gone from an all-state insurance agency, actually one of the large ones across the country, and now we've kind of made the transition and fully in the independent world.
All right. So why don't you start by briefly share your journey to becoming an agency owner and what experience or passion led you down this path?
Yeah, so I'm second generation, so it was more of kind of built in our blood. So my dad started back in 1974 in a Sears building selling auto insurance with Allstate, auto and life insurance. And so he quickly grew to one of the bigger Allstate agencies in Florida, and actually had some national awards over his career. And then me and my wife graduated from Florida State in about 90, or my wife in 97, me in 98. And 3 days later, I was in the agency and working full time. So I've done everything from had to be the front desk person to customer service agent to lead sales to purely life insurance to there was actually one point where dad was paying me so little, I almost went into the construction industry. I actually was flipping houses, making so much money flipping houses. I actually went to my dad and said, hey man, I don't know if this insurance is right for me. I'm making a lot more money flipping houses, so I'm going to go. And then all of a sudden he was like, well, let's put you in management and start paying you more. So
There you go.
yeah, I almost got out of it. And then we purchased from him in 2009. We purchased the entire book, the Allstate book, and all of the different carriers. And from then we grew. We actually were one of the top producing Allstate agencies. By the time I left, I was still the top producing Allstate agent for auto in Northeast Florida. And we just decided, being with the direct carrier, just the abuse and everything else going on, it was time to leave. And so luckily before that leaving, my father was out of the business and we got him and one of my best friends back into the business, and they started the independent agency. So the independent agency ran for about 6 years. First 3 were chaos. And then the agency is doing great. And now that we've left Allstate, I've kind of, I took some time off and then came back in here to run the agency.
Awesome. Well, I think there's a lot to unpack in everything you said.
Oh, yeah.
Let's break it down. Start with your journey about, as you said, you had to go and literally negotiate your salary back in. There is a management principle here that, hey, you need to ask for it, right?
There's a little bit of, and you'll find it even with your staff sometimes when you teach them something and they come in kind of totally green and new to the industry. Then you teach them all this stuff and they become really good at doing something, but you still remember them not being great. And so I try to keep that in the forefront of my mind, that just because, they came in here, you can end up losing a very skilled team member because, you're like, well, I taught you from you not knowing it.
Yeah.
And you came in as X and now you're Y. And the principle there is learn to pay them for Y as you develop, because that almost happened to me. It just made sense to go somewhere else. So yeah, that's a learning lesson I still keep. Yeah.
I think I am also influenced by that bias sometimes. You are absolutely right. And guys, right in the first minute, you get this management learning right there from Brent. Perfect. Now talk to me about, so when you felt that you got introduced to insurance, of course, those were not a dinner table discussion as you were growing up, or was it?
My dad worked all the time. So, my dad was always at the office 60, 80 hours a week. He was always one of their top producers, but that being said, he was always working. And
Mm.
so, I came in the industry and I really didn't want to come in because, at the time I was like, man, I don't want to not be there for my family or not, those kind of things. And so what I found out is as I got here, my dad was always like just doing it. He was always the number one guy. Everyone answered to him. Everything rolled up to him. And it had to go that way until we took over. And one of the most frustrating things for my father after I took over was me starting to build a management team and place managers in and pay them more and put them dealing with the customer. My dad would get mad because he would send somebody to the office and I would be like, yeah, I'll have Sandy get in touch with them. And he's like, what do you mean Sandy's going to get in touch with them? I'm like, yeah, because that's what happens here. And so I learned a long time ago that it was better to replicate yourself than be the number one, the best player on your team. You're better off being the coach. And so we took a lot of time after we bought in '09 of just kind of redistributing roles and kind of growing in that aspect and putting people in the right positions that were better. I mean, I'm ADHD. I'm terrible about following through certain things. Um, I've got team members that are great at following through things. So I'll come up with the ideas, I'll develop the relationships, but there's no reason for me to handle the detailed items.
Wow. Yeah, right up there, as you mentioned, I think this is another big struggle for almost every agency is, I am stuck, I cannot grow. And, I think you have given them an answer how you unstuck yourself.
Well, I unstuck myself by that and I kept myself with enough payroll that I could take a cut, right? Most business owners or insurance agents, not just business owners, mostly insurance agents, stop at that $1 to $3 million mark. And most of the reason why they stop it is they're unwilling to cut into their own paycheck to hire a couple extra people to grow. And so it costs money to market. It costs so, and when it's not a $1 to $3 million, there's multiple different spots in your career where you've got to add extra people or add extra technology that you won't see the benefit for a year, maybe 2 years. And so a lot of people won't invest back into their business. And we were talking about that earlier. You got to invest back into yourself or invest back into your group. And, does it always pay off? No. But most of the time it does. And it makes it, it's partially why we were able to grow. I mean, the last 4 years, we've grown, I think, anywhere between 30 to 40% every single year. And part of that growth
Wow.
has been just absolute total reinvestment.
Especially in Florida market, which is so notorious.
So yeah, everybody says that the Florida market's been terrible, right? Yes, but if you hire enough people and you put in enough technology, you can make a good thing out of a terrible market. And so I think a
Mm.
lot of people have, they go, oh my God, it's so terrible. I got to rewrite. I mean, we had over 3,000 rewrites last year. Like we had to
Mm.
rewrite 3,000 policies. You just have to do different. You have to do different. You can't take your sales team off of producing new business. And so what happens with most agencies, they won't hire enough people because they think of rewrites as a net zero value. And then what you end up doing is not being able to do the rewrites because your sales team's concentrated on rewrites. And now you don't have a sales team taking in new business. So we
Hmm.
separated that out. That went to our service team and that went to actually, I wish I could relive last year again. Now that now that we've discovered VAs, oh man, I could have probably done it in half the time and done it twice as good as what we did it.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, it's just a lot of manual work, right? And you can leverage the labor arbitrage.
Yeah. Yeah. And using
Interesting. Yeah,
technology helps that. Technology and virtual assistants help that tremendously.
yeah. So, all right. So that's a lot of good insight right there. So let me ask an interesting question. So if you weren't running your agency, what problem in the insurance industry would you tackle? What else
Oh,
excites you in this space?
Honestly, what excites me is what you guys do. To be honest, I would try to figure out how to, for years when I first came in '09, we had not an Excel, but it was, it was just like a high end Excel spreadsheet to keep track of all our business. And then we went to, we even tried to have somebody build something for us, and we've had multiple iterations of a CRM over the years. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, everyone will tell you it takes 7 to 10 times. You have to touch the client 7 to 10 times to close them in the insurance business, but nobody knows how to really keep track of that. And so what you guys do with keeping track of it and trying to get the phone systems connected in and get everything kind of connected in. So me as an agency owner can see who's doing that 7 to 10 times. What's their percentage of closing? Where are my best leads coming from? Where's all that stuff is what truly excites me. And I don't think it's just in the insurance industry. I can't tell you how many business owners I know that don't know what their closing rate is, have no idea how their salespeople track leads. Um, we spend over $300,000 a year on basically marketing. Why? Why
Yeah.
would you burn that money other than, it makes no sense to burn it at all. It makes sense to watch every dollar and understand where it's going. So if I was not doing
Yeah.
if I had a choice, I would, in the time when I've been down and I was in between on Allstate and coming back here, that's exactly what I did, was focused on and helping agencies kind of understand where that was. And most of the time, we're pointing them to you guys and then working with you guys on how that worked.
Wow. Well, that's pretty impressive, and thank you for believing in the work we do. And again, you are absolutely right, Brent. It's first of all, it's not rocket science. To this theory exists for the longest time possible. Is I want to have everything in one place. We just enable that theory with technology. We just made that happen. And as you say, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it.
Yeah. And
And
not
and
only
I,
it's not just the measuring and the managing of it. It's just, it's measuring, managing, and then counseling with your team members afterwards on, if you look and see that their queues are getting jammed up, it's like, okay, what's happening here, right? Or I can usually
yeah,
look at their queues within 2 seconds and go, they're not making phone calls.
yeah.
Um, or I can look at their notes and go, they didn't have a good conversation. And so then you kind of know how to consult back with them and help them be better at what they do. It's not to use a stick all the time. It's to help them develop so that they can help you.
Yeah. So let's continue talking about industry a bit. So, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about the insurance industry?
Oh, probably the big. You talking about insurance agents, or are you talking about the general
Yeah,
company?
I think just more from the consumer perspective, the policy buyers, both from the personal as well as from the commercial side, where does it go? Where sometimes they like it, other times they hate it because they are forced to buy.
Yeah.
You
And I think the worst thing that we do, and the biggest misconception is the agency has control over the rates, right? That's probably the biggest misconception there is, that agencies have the ability to control. But that being said, we are terrible about letting them know we're their advisor and that we have a benefit in the deal, and that here in explaining the reason why the agent or why the company is taking a rate change. So I
Hmm.
interview people from agencies all the time. I rarely hire someone from another agency, just because mostly when you ask them, why is the insurance company taking a rate change, especially here in Florida homeowners, you get something like, stuff's going up. So, and the insurance companies are losing money. And nobody cares that the insurance company's losing money. And as for stuff's going up, it's just not a good answer. You've got to be more direct and more clear, and then also let them know that it's your job to look for options, see what's going on, and give them the best options for their price. And I think as for agencies, we do a terrible job at explaining that. And we spend very little time with our team walking through and explaining even to our team why adjustments and changes are happening in the market. Like us as CEOs, we learn it because we talk to all the industry talking heads. And then we don't take that time and really, a lot of us don't take that time and digest it and put it down and make it into a bite size or just a little quick message to our team on what they need to say to our clients, right? And explain why this is happening.
I think you hit on a very, very important point, and I'm learning so much just in, from you right now. You are absolutely right that first of all, the biggest misconception, I love it. I love it the way you're saying it is, as a consumer, we believe, oh, you increase the rate because you're going to make more money. That's the basic thing is there. But I think there is more to that story, and that decoding of that part has to come from the leaders to the frontline people to the customer, and that is, I think, somewhere the ball is getting dropped.
Mostly. And I think most of the time it's just, they have a quick, really, hey, here's what I heard from XYZ company today when I was sitting down with them. And that's okay. But I mean, we do things like daily meetings where we bring the reps in and it's like, all right, tell us why this is happening. Or if I go to a conference, we'll sit down and go, here's what we heard. Here's what you need to learn. Here's what you need to say. And we'll put it on we have a video training platform. We'll have it on a video training platform and stick it on and make everybody review it. And then that way it's like everybody knows what to say here. Everybody knows what to do.
Yep. All right. Let's get back to you a little bit about the growing pains. You have done a remarkable job of taking the agency to this height. So what do you think has been the biggest challenge you have faced in growing your agency?
I think the biggest challenge is hiring and training the right people. That has by far been our biggest struggle. And then the other part is adaptation of new technology and change, right? So we've done some really cool things that has made people's lives easier, but it's very strange that people get so scared of change that they won't even try the new thing because it's different. And so I think not only hiring the right people, but getting our team to accept the digital changing that we've done, not even digital, but just how we operate, what we do. Because about every $5 to $10 million in premium, the way you did it in the old days, it just doesn't work in the personal lines. And so, you have to add managers or you have to change the way. And we're in the process now of any non-revenue generating item either needs to be offloaded onto a bot or needs to be offloaded onto a VA. And so if it's a non-revenue generating, non-license required issue, we have to figure out a way to get it to less expensive team members or to a bot that we pay. And so we're really focused on that this year and next year. On getting, and the other reason for focusing on that, it makes our team life better, right? They're not dealing with data entry or BS work that drives them crazy and stops them from having real decent conversations with their clients. And so we want to get our team here in the US to be focused on quality conversations with the client. And have them really focused on the client. Any of the back end or BS work that we can offload or offshoot from them, we're going to offshoot as much as we can off of that.
That's interesting. And sometimes the argument against that is about, hey, does that impact your customer experience, or does that, are you taking that human interaction away? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would argue the opposite. I think it makes, when you have a customer service agent that's jammed up or a CSR that's completely jammed up with having to look at downloads and try to sort them out and place it in and just all this useless work. When that phone rings, she's not going to be her best self when she answers that phone because she's got to go back to this data entry job that you've given her and driven her nuts with. In your sales team, Do they need to look and review the quotes? Absolutely, but they don't need to place them in the carriers, right? So placing it into the quoting platform and getting the quotes and making sure that they're just generally close. They don't need to do that. That's not work that's skilled, and it's not work that's worthwhile for them. So there's a lot of that work that just drives people crazy. Back end follow up for salespeople, especially salespeople, you want your salespeople to be killers, right? You want them to run and hunt and, well, you know what? You're making them be farmers when you're like, okay, now the deal's closed. I want you to make this all pretty and get all the documents signed and do all this. That all can be done by a VA to get the documents signed, send out the DocuSigns, get everything packaged up, make sure it gets to the carrier properly. That's not something that's required to be. So that's the stuff that stops you from being your best self. I would argue that all my team is their best self because they didn't have to get jammed up with just minutia work, right? Like you'd be better at home if you came home and everything's perfect and stuff's right? It's the reason I laugh. It's the reason why I've had a cleaning person for years, because I don't want to go home and be cleaning there with my wife who works here in the agency with me and then not dealing with my kids or not wanting it's just certain jobs just need to be hauled off. And so it's just a better experience for everyone involved.
And I'm taking notes here. I'm getting schooled.
Uh,
Love it. Love it. Um, so let's take that conversation forward on retention. And what do you think, if at all, has there been any retention challenge and on the policy retention, basically, or the client retention, and how did you develop a strategy to address it?
So, I mean, actually, we're in the process of, we've done a couple things, right? We've used VAs to get some of the work off our team. We've used voice drops to make it look like we're reaching out to the client. Right now we're in the process of building out a renewal pipeline with you guys, because our regeneration pipeline and our new business pipeline have been absolutely so successful with the automation. The renewal pipeline, with giving it a voice drop where it just drops a message to them, sending them texts, sending them emails. We've had so much luck with our pipelines. I think we're running right now at 89% just general retention. We think we can be at like 91, 92 with just that ad. Taking off the grunt back end work off of the team and then adding a little bit of automation to make it look like, even though we're not necessarily reaching out, kind of are. I mean, realistically, we have triggers in there when it goes to a rewrite team, so on and so forth.
Interesting. Interesting. All right, let's pull it back again a little bit on the leadership. What so other agency CEOs, as you know, they are kind of one of a listening a component that they listen to. So, what would you say as a CEO? What are some of the essential skills or mindset of a CEO that they need to develop to be best at their job running an agency?
So I think one of the best things that helped me years ago, I had a buddy of mine, Brian Dawson, that drugged me into a expensive Vistage meeting. And at the time, I didn't have the money to pay for Vistage. Now we don't go to, it's not Vistage anymore. There's 13 of us guys that meet from different industries. And we go, oddly enough, we all go through the exact same problems. We all have the exact same problems with tracking leads and closing deals and so on and so forth, right? So being in a trusted group run by a leader, kind of, going through different business problems, you learn a ton from just sitting around a table and going through or helping somebody else with their problem. You can a lot of times go back, take that back and go, okay, I don't ever want to be in that problem. What do I need to do now not to do that? And so there's a lot you can learn from a group like that. And so I would say that was my biggest thing that kind of helped me get my mindset right. And the next was getting involved in EOS, so Entrepreneurial Operating System. we operate via EOS. And so realizing you're not, and I think that's hard for a lot of people. You might be the guy who's going to work the hardest, and you might be the guy with the best ideas, but you might not be the best at implementing all the ideas. And so starting to figure out who you need on your team and what they need to do and what their roles are, um, man, that helped us catapult just unbelievable once we really started adapting and kind of growing in entrepreneurial operating system. Once we realized what we were doing,
Interesting.
we were able to grow a lot faster.
Um, you, I hear a lot more of the chatter around EOS now, traction. I think Gina Whitman is the guy who wrote the book, and that it has
Yeah.
become a kind of a new norm. Um, a lot more agencies are starting to use this now, right? And I was talking to another Seabird. I'm sure you know them, and they are using EOS, and you get several of them, in fact. So I think there is. I would encourage people to look at that. I think at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
the
let's.
idea behind the
Mhm.
EOS is just get an operation, get your team in operation and have everybody with good responsibilities, right? And meet weekly. We meet
Yeah.
weekly with our team. Our team goes through EOS. So we have a customer service team and a sales team that are always going through regular meetings. So issues happen in our agency daily, but they're once a week. Our team can meet, they can discuss or bring up issues, so everybody kind of feels like they're heard, right? And many of the
Hmm.
times, the executive team doesn't have to settle the issue because we'll push it back down to the customer service or the sales team and go, "You guys figure out your own
We'll
issue
figure it
here.
out.
If you need us to step in, we will." But we think that you're probably closer to the problem and understand it better than we do. And they appreciate having that buy-in, and they appreciate having, I mean, they all know how to
That
settle.
autonomy.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
coming from my seat trying to settle the issue is not going to be the proper. Yeah, there's no way I'm coming up with
Yeah.
the best solve.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you mentioned a couple times on technology. You talked about, hey, how you would love to build another insured mind. So talk to me within your agency how you triangulate between people, process, and technology, and how is that helping you define success at your place?
So people, process, and technology. Always be hiring on the people, because there's a lot of burnout and a big resignation. I mean, we've got some great people here, but there's still just some challenges with our market. And so we constantly are running ads. And I think even if we don't have a spot, if you're going to be good and we can find a, or we can make a spot, we just make a spot, right?
Nice.
And so change out your C players for A players, or change out your C players for B players. A lot of agencies get kind of too hooked in, I see, with the longevity of somebody, and though that's very important, I've seen in the past, especially when I took over my dad's agency, sometimes your longtime employees are doing the most damage because those are the people that don't want to change. They don't want to see stuff done. They don't want to see new technology. And I mean, honestly, the one thing that'll get you fired in my office is going, "That's not the way we used to do it." I like, that is not a saying allowed in my agency. If we wanted to do it
Good.
the way we used to do it, then we'd be dinosaurs, and so that's just not allowed. So that technology growth and the people is important. Implementing, man, I'm finding, as for implementing technology, unfortunately, as frustrating as it can be, it is, nobody learns the first time. And so it's present, represent again, present it again. And over time, if they're not going to accept it, then they're not the right person for your agency. If you're really committed to technology and you're really committed to growth, you can't have somebody on your team that's just unwilling to do the technology or unwilling to do the growth. And so it's, it's give them all the opportunities and all the tools in the world to do it. But if they're not going to do it, then they can't work here.
Awesome. So with that experience of 25 plus, what, closer to probably 30 years in the business
Yeah.
now for
Yeah.
you?
Almost
Yeah.
26 or 27. Yeah. Long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, What would you say as your proudest moment as a agency owner?
I would probably say I hate to say I said it's coming up, right? I say it's in the future, but probably deciding to leave the main, Allstate. When you realize that your customers really are more attached to you than they are to a main carrier, and that you're actually going to be a real business owner. And not that I'm not saying that being a direct writer, you can't be a real business owner, but there's a lot of stuff that the big carrier will not allow you to do and will not allow you to think on your own and not allow you to kind of fully implement your vision. And so when we decided that it was just time to go and it just was time to really grow, um, it once when you realize you weren't going to die, because that's the first of it, like, right, it's all gonna blow up. Once when you get a year or so out and you're like, okay, I'm gonna live and things are gonna be okay, and the world didn't explode. I think that's probably one of my prouder moments, especially of my team.
Interesting. As we come to the top of the hour here, on our 30 minutes, as we wrap up, anything interesting in this journey that, because now you have been on both sides of the world, on the agency, anything that, as a wrap-up story that you want to share that draws a very unique attention to, why life is different on two different aspect of the business here.
I think on the direct writing side, you're buying a job. And so as long as you just want to be you want to operate within a box and it's a great career path. You can make plenty of money at it, but as long as you're willing to always operate under someone's box, then it works out great. As long as you're good with them picking out their phone system and their lead system and your CRM and no matter if it works or doesn't work, or no matter how bad it works or doesn't work, you're just stuck with it. On the independent world, I think the one thing I noticed, this is a better world for an entrepreneur, right? So this is a better world for a free thinking entrepreneur that just is willing to have ideas. But realistically, it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to be the idea guy and the implementing guy and those kind of things. So there's a bit of the direct writing world is great for most people. The independent world is great for free thinking entrepreneurs that want to absolutely grow, because you can. And the other thing is, you can do right by the client. When you see a carrier being, unrealistic or not friendly to your client, when you're in the direct writing world, it's like, yep, they took a 30%. No, the market only took 5, but you're going to eat that 30% because I can't tell you to go anywhere else. That's not a good way to operate business. And that's not a good way to be. And so we're a local community. Heck, I do 90% of my business in a 3-county area. Last thing I want to be known for is the guy that, jams a square peg in a round hole or doesn't do right by the client. Rather just do right by the client. And I don't think you can do that anymore in the direct writing world where you can in the independent world.
Wow. Well, I must say, Brent, and I'll confess this, this is one of the most solid podcast session I've had in the recent past. And not that, others were not great, but, the kind of experience and the depth you bring in this management style of how you have structured your agency, how you have transitioned so much. A lot of people have a lot of experience, but sometimes those experience do not translate well into the right kind of learning that is well reflected to be shared. So they have it a lot for themselves, but when it is reflected well and it is shared, this kind of conversations come out of that. So I'm really honored and privileged to have this conversation with you. So thank you for sharing everything and good luck for the journey of now on the independent side. And we want to see you double, triple, just keep growing, man.
Well, with you guys are making it easier on us. So I will
Thank you.
give you guys a plug. It really has been a blessing to be with you guys. It's been I would say a lot of our growth and a lot of the way we do things right now is thanks to you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Brent. And we'll continue this chatter probably one time where it is more about insured mind. But with that, thank you for your time today.